Hello everyone, I'm Tommy with Studio Sense. Today I'm going to be talking about that ever familiar buyer's remorse. That's right. Have you ever blind bought a product only to get it home and regret buying it? Perhaps there was something about the ad campaign that was misrepresented, or you discovered something about the product after the fact, or you just had an assumption, you were purchasing the product based on an assumption or memory that turned out to be not altogether accurate. We've all experienced it. I know I've experienced it at the very minimum at least 5 times. And so we're going to discuss those 5 fragrances that I currently owned that I would not buy again. And I kind of regret purchasing. Kind of, sort of. So stay tuned. Coming up next. First up on my list of 5 fragrances that I would not buy again is Hummer Chrome. That's right, Hummer. It was a car manufacturer that created a automobile, I don't know if you want to call it an automobile. It's kind of like a mix of a utilitarian military vehicle, SUV. It kind of came from the military Humvee. And so they made the Hummer, the baby Hummer. And now I hear, since they stopped production, I think in 2002 or 2004, that they're actually bringing out a new version of the Hummer back out again. So that's kind of exciting. This, however, not super exciting. Now the juice inside Hummer Chrome isn't that bad. You've got notes of vanilla, amber, tonka, cardamom, thyme, leather, and sandalwood. Now that's a pretty decent mix, and honestly, it's not that bad. The juice itself, it's mildly pleasant. The biggest problem that I have with this is presentation. Look at this guy. There's really not an easy way to hold this. Now this is a 125 ml bottle, so you get quite a bit of juice. And I'm assuming this is supposed to be representative of the big, Humvee tires. The Hummer tires, and that's okay. The bottle itself is kind of like the Hummer in that it is squat, it is fat and utilitarian and just super awkward in your hand. Just like a Hummer looks on the road, super awkward because it can go off-road, it can go in water, purportedly. So this is the worst bottle on my shelf presently. Number one, if you have a collection, you can't see this anywhere. It sits so low to the ground, its profile is so low. Number two, and again, this is the biggest problem that I have with it, it's just awkward to hold in your hand. Like every time I've tried to use this, I'll either drop it or I just have to specially hold it. Like it needs special attention just to spray it. And then you kind of have to tilt your finger over. And I've got big hands, so I don't suffer from challenge of small hands. It's just really hard to use this juice. Hummer Chrome is itself super inexpensive because it was never that popular for probably the similar reasons. The juice isn't a huge letdown, but there's just nothing that sets this apart. It's trying to be mass appealing. It's trying to be crowd pleasing. It's trying to be mass appealing, and it just prevents itself from making it. So it is neither. It is neither mass appealing nor crowd pleasing. And in fact, it's quite annoying sitting on your shelf, being hidden from other bottles that have a better profile, that are taller, that fit in your hand a lot easier. Now, if this were to have been sat like this with this on the top, maybe a little bit smaller, that would have been a much better design choice. You see how much easier that is? This, however, feels like the first time you try to play guitar and you try to put your fingers on the fret and you're just super awkward. And I really don't want to practice having to hold my fragrances to use them. There's just not enough good about this juice to warrant practice holding the bottle. So that is number 1 in my list. Not number 1 being the worst or the best of the worst. It just is. And similar to the juice in the bottle, it just is. Hummer Chrome. I will not buy it again. And as you can see, I've barely even tapped the juice in the bottle, and I don't use it frequently. I've used it a few times. I've never gotten compliments from this. That's not to say someone wouldn't compliment you wearing this, but I personally have not gotten one. And it just falls within the kind of bland, generic guy fragrance, just like aftershave. Second in my list of fragrances that I will not buy again is Burberry Weekend. Now, I really wanted to like this because I really like Burberry London. It's really great fragrance, but this is not that great. I can see a situation in the lab where they're standing there one Saturday afternoon, like, we gotta make something, we have all these extra ingredients. I tell you what, let's just put them all together, and then we could just throw in a bunch of citrus on there to kind of mask the actual fragrance. And so we can call this a citrus bomb. And what day is it? It's Saturday. We'll call it Citrus Bomb Weekend. And then somebody said, no, just take Citrus Bomb out of there and just call it Weekend. Dude, that's brilliant. Now the notes in Weekend are just a cornucopia of different notes, primarily citruses. So you would think this is have a banger of a citrus opening, and it kind of does, but kind of doesn't. Because what happens is it throws some notes in there that kind of take you in a different direction. And so I don't want to say that it's almost scent confusion, but it's almost scent confusion. But the biggest problem that I have with this is the honey. That's right, citrus and honey have to be done in a particular way for it to work. Otherwise, it takes your nose on a journey where it doesn't really know where it's going. It's like, we got sort of warm and semi-sweet because of the honey, but then we have bright citrus that wants to go in this direction, and then we have melon that wants to go in this direction. It's just not, to me, it's not a good blend and not a good mix of these notes. You've got pineapple, melon, orange, grapefruit, lemon, bergamot, sandalwood, ivy, oak moss, honey, amber, and musk. I'm not so sure about the honey, the oak moss, the melon, the pineapple. It's a lot of citrus. It's a lot of citrus going on, but none of it seems to be very successful. When I smell this, really what I'm smelling, it seems almost floral, and it seems to kind of be canted on the side of feminine. So I would call this a unisex fragrance, honestly. But there's something about that melon and that honey that to me just takes it in a direction that my nose just doesn't want to go. If that's the kind of weekend that you're gonna have, I'd rather wake up on Monday morning instead of this kind of weekend. Now, you may have a different experience with this, and I want to fully give you permission to allow yourself to enjoy this fragrance if this is what you like. But for me, I just didn't really feel like it had a really good, specific, clear idea of what its identity was supposed to be. So this fragrance, I will not be buying again. Next on my list of 5 fragrances that I would not buy again is Marvel's SpiderMan Black. That's right, you may have seen this bottle in the background of my other videos because that's where it stays. This fragrance was supposed to promise a very citrusy, nice, bright opening. It is geared towards the younger audience, the younger crowd, younger guys out there that are wanting to get started. And granted, if you've purchased this as a younger person and you like it, more power to you. You don't have a lot of comparison at this point, and that's okay. But here, as an adult, here's why I wouldn't purchase this for myself. And honestly, if you're an adult dad or an adult mom, and you have a youngster that wants to start out in fragrances, here's why I also wouldn't necessarily spend any money on SpiderMan Black. Now, the opening does have lemon, grapefruit, and crisp apples. That's supposed to give you that bright. It also has bergamot. That's supposed to give you that bright citrusy opening, but it's almost non-existent when you spray this. This fragrance has virtually no projection and no longevity past the initial blast of alcohol that you get in your face. What you do get when that alcohol starts kind of dying away is a little bit of aldehyde, so it does have a little bit of soapiness to it, a little bit of powder, but I keep saying a little bit because it doesn't get past that very much. That opening is super astringent and it burns your nose, and as you wait for the dry down, which should actually be called let down, because when you finally get there, there's really not a lot going on there. What's left is lily of the valley, jasmine, sandalwood, and purportedly precious woods, but the woods in this are barely detectable, as is everything else. The main problem that I have with this is everything in it is barely detectable, and that's no good. You don't want, as a youngster starting out, to give them the idea that, oh, fragrance isn't very fragrant. Sits right on top of the skin, barely does anything. The bottle is really nice, admittedly. It does have a cool presentation. I'll show you. You've got the Spider-Man on the top there, the spider logo / symbol, which is very iconic. The bottle is kind of cool. You've got an embossed web on the bottle itself, along with the actual silver spider, and it is a black bottle, thus SpiderMan Black. The concentration used in this is operating under scarcity. Now, what I mean by that is almost like this was created during the Great Depression when ingredients were scarce. They had a lockdown on certain supplies because of scarcity. If you're young and just getting started, why not go out and get something like Versace Eau Fraiche? Now, you're going to spend a few more dollars, but you're going to get a tremendous increase in quality. Something that's really, really good. Something that you can actually smell the tarragon and the spice and the ingredients, and it is very fresh, it is very youthful and energetic, and that's what you want, not SpiderMan Black. So this is definitely a case of style over substance. Next up is another iconic Marvel favorite, and that is Marvel Black Panther. Now, similar to SpiderMan Black, this is a bit of a letdown, though not quite as much. When I was a kid and on the playground, it seemed like everybody wanted to be Spider-Man or Iron Man or all the other alternatives that I wanted to be. So I really resonated with Black Panther. He became my guy. You know, I was Black Panther. Now, I wasn't expecting a whole lot, but I was expecting a little something. At least these aren't trying to clone a fragrance. They are their own thing, but that doesn't mean a lot. So the presentation is cool. I'll show you this graphic. The problem is what this graphic reminds me of, have you ever booted up a video game and you know when you're getting the settings set up, right? And it asks you to go through and set the brightness and the contrast, and it shows you a logo or a symbol, and it says when you can barely see this logo, hit OK because you're good. That's what this looks like, because you can barely see it. So really, that's why I got the bottle, because I wanted to see Black Panther on it. Now all I'm seeing is just this graphic with a little bit of Black Panther something maybe. It's not that pleasing. So you can probably barely see it yourself with the light shining on it, but it's not that great. So presentation, smell. So you've got lavender, juniper, musk, cedar, and sandalwood. And that all sounds great, and that all smells great, but it doesn't smell super great in this. Now, this isn't nasty smelling by any means. It's just that you smell a hint of something that you want more of, but you never get more of. In fact, with the dry down, it just seems to dissipate faster and faster. So these little guys, unfortunately, are alcohol bombs. So just a bunch of carrier in there and not a lot of really nice concentration of anything. So again, I kind of understand what they were going for with a younger audience. They didn't want to be like effusive with a really strong fragrance, but come on, guys, kids can handle more than that. They want something that smells good and that projects off of them and their sweaty little bodies. This isn't going to do that. If you want more of this fragrance, just get Jupe Homme. This smells very much like Jupe, but Jupe Homme does a better job with projection and longevity. You actually get a decent amount of both, whereas you get none in this. So presentation, missed opportunity. Fragrance, total missed opportunity. Will not be buying this again. Lastly, the very last of my 5, I'm kind of sad to mention. In fact, there was an article that came out in Fragrantica not that long ago. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. Yes, that's right, Geoffrey Beene's Gray Flannel. Now, your experience with Gray Flannel may be very different than mine. The reason that I wanted to purchase this is this was created, I think, back in 1975 when I was just a tyke. And I remember my father was a traveling salesman, and right before he would travel, he would get out a suitcase and start packing all of his stuff, his clothes, his shaving kit, and what part of his accoutrement was always to have a bottle of either English leather or gray flannel. So I had lots of memories of gray flannel as a child. I purchased it today based on a memory. Today's version of gray flannel is going to be a little bit different. It has been reformulated. This is not the original formulation, but that's okay. I thought it's going to be close enough to spark all these evocative memories of my dad, of traveling, of the halcyon days when I was a child and had tons of energy. Gray flannel, it's cool. So I get the bottle, I pop the lid off, I spray it, I smell it, and I'm like, oh my God, what is that? Was I crazy as a kid? Did I really smell this and think this smelled good? Was it totally reformulated, completely different set of ingredients? No. Gray flannel is still a nostalgic, great, and all those memories that I talked about did eventually come back. My brain, kind of put together the missing pieces and parts, and this did evoke those memories. And believe it or not, I do like gray flannel. I just want to make that blanket statement. I do like gray flannel. It is a little bit challenging because it is on the heavier pungent, kind of astringent side of fragrances. So to me, you know how they say, reset your schnoz. If you're smelling too many things and you've got scent confusion or you're nearing anosmia, take some coffee grinds and smell them. It grounds your sense of smell or resets it. Smell gray flannel. The contrast is amazing. Everything else smells amazing compared to gray flannel. Now, I'm not knocking it. Again, I really do like it. It has quite a few notes in it. In fact, I'm going to kind of read off the list because I'm not going to dedicate myself to memorizing all these notes. But yeah, when I first smelled it, I thought I was going to have all these pleasant memories of a Leave It to Beaver style home life or Pleasantville, and it just smelled like an old sock drawer with mothballs in it. Like my grandmother asked me to fetch her favorite sweater that she never wears for fear of it disintegrating. So this is considered an oriental woody fragrance, and it is very woody after you let it dry down. But it's got galbanum, it's got neroli, petite grain, bergamot, lemon, mimosa, iris, violet, sage, rose, geranium, narcissus, tonka, almond, oak moss, vetiver, and cedar. Again, use of the word cornucopia means a bunch of things jammed into one little package, and that is appropriate for this. So there's a lot going on in the smell. It is kind of a complex fragrance. You can kind of break it down and say that it smells pungent, it smells stuffy, it smells whatever, it smells old, it smells like gray flannel. So the name is appropriate, and that's not always like appealing. But again, I bought this based on an assumption and a memory that wasn't wholly accurate. So that's on me, that's my fault. Geoffrey Beane's gray flannel did nothing wrong. It just is what it is. However, once this bottle is gone and I have a lot of juice left, I probably won't be buying another, but I don't think I'll run out. This is kind of like one of those nostalgic purchases that you only have to do once. So always have it and always enjoy it, but I won't buy it again. All right, guys, that wraps up my 5 fragrances that I will not buy again for various reasons, whether it was a manufacturer issue, whether it was an advertising campaign issue, whether it was an assumption or a thought or memory on my part that wasn't wholly correct, or whether the juice and presentation is just really bad. So I'm sure that you can pick out 5 or more of your own for very similar reasons. And if you do, please leave your comments below and tell me what those are, or if you've had a different experience with these, leave your comments below and tell me what they are. Always enjoy hearing them. That's going to wrap up today's video, guys. Thanks so much for coming along with me. Thank you always for your support. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you next time.